convenient. Maybe because there's an earth science quiz? Maybe? Yeah, it's quite a lot. Let me just calibrate the board and then I'll put this back up. There we go. Okay, so today in lecture, we do have a double today. So the first period, the lecture period, we're going to just go over homework 4. I'll answer whatever questions that you have, and then you'll take the quiz. For lab, you're going to finish the Bermuda Triangle lab, and then you're going to start lab number 5, okay, parts 1 and 2. If you don't, that becomes your homework. In addition, your homework is to put Bermuda Triangle labs on Google Classroom, because that one should be finished, bless you, by the end of next period. And that's pretty much it for today. Nice, simple day. I do not think we're going to go outside because it's kind of gross and rainy and everything is a little wet, so I think it'd be better to just stay in for today. So sorry about that. Hopefully we'll get some nice fall days pretty soon and then we can go outside again. So as soon as you're finished copying down your homework, please take out your homework from over the weekend, which was homework 4. What's that? You have no lecture homework, but I think a couple people need to catch up on lab stuff, so this might be a do lab night tonight, since there's no lecture homework specifically. Okay. Does anyone still need this up? Okay. Good? Okay. So let's pull up your lecture homework. So the average on the homework last night was an 8 out of 10, I believe, which was pretty good. I'm just going to go over the first 5 questions kind of quickly because I think that we covered that pretty well, and most people feel comfortable taking coordinates off of a map. I will take another minute and just go over latitude and longitude to the nearest minute using page 3 one more time so you see it right before your quiz. I do kind of feel that that's the hardest part of the quiz, but I just graded first period's quizzes and most people got in the 90s. So there's no surprises. Very few region style questions, more just skill based. Do you know how to use page 3, page 5, and page 4? And can you use a map like this? Okay, yes?
I would like to just do it on Google Classroom.
What was the question?
I would like to just do it on Google Classroom.
I would do it on both so that when I go over it in class, you have what you did in front of you, and then you can ask me questions if you got something wrong. You may not remember what you put on Google Classroom if you didn't over the weekend. And pull your mask all the way out to page 30. Okay. So question number 1. It says, what are the coordinates of point A? Okay, so for point A, I'm pretty sure it gave you plus or minus 5 degrees on these. So A, first I look at my latitude. So I'm just going to trace over the equator so I can see it. And then I'm going to kind of estimate where A is. So if this is 30 and this is 0, I would say this is probably about 10, and maybe this is about 20. So looking at A, it looks like it's a little bit above the 20. So I said maybe like 22 degrees north for A. Remember, for all of these, you have plus or minus 5 degrees, okay? And then A is right on the 100-degree line, so that's here. And this is the western hemisphere, so 100 degrees west. So where you have to estimate, you get plus or minus 5. If it's right on a line, there should be no plus or minus 5 exact number. Okay, so that's for A. For B, we are noticing that it is below the equator. And again, you want to estimate, this would probably be about 10, 20, and then 30. I'd say B is a little bit less than 20. I said closer to 25 for this one. It's degrees south. And since it's in the middle of our 2 lines, we have to estimate again. So this would be 50, So I said for the longitude about 50 to 53 degrees west. Remember, this is your prime meridian. Most people on the quiz that I saw from first period had trouble designating west versus east. It is written on this map, which is nice, but make sure that you are marking a map when you first get it. So when you get your quiz, you might want to fill out north, south, east, and west, and make sure you know where they are ahead of time. Okay, point C is right on the equator, so my first coordinate is 0 degrees. Okay, so then I'm between the 20 and 40, but I'm very close to my 20 line, pretty close to it, so I think I said about 25 degrees east. Again, plus or minus 5 degrees for that coordinate. Okay, and then last is D up here. D is the only one that is not plus or minus for any of the coordinates because it's right in the middle of two lines. So 60 degrees north and 60 degrees east for this. Okay. So for question 5, it asks from which of these 4 coordinates is Polaris visible and why? Okay. I accepted 2 separate answers for this one. So A, D, definitely you can see Polaris. And I also accepted if you put C. Okay. So why is there the question about C? Why is C like iffy? Because a couple people asked me this on Friday before you even went home. They were like, A and D for sure, but should I include C? Why is C so iffy, Camden? Exactly. So if I was at location C, it's on the equator, just like Camden said, and she said it would be straight out on the horizon. So that's where Polaris would be, which would be really difficult to see, but technically you could. So on Google Classroom, I accepted if you just put A and D, but I also accepted if you put all 3, because technically it would be all 3. So just make sure you know that. Why is it not B, more importantly? Why do we not include B in our answer? So A and D, definitely yes. C, definitely not B. Why definitely not B? Christian?
Why the southern?
It's in the southern hemisphere, exactly. And can we see the North Star if we're in the southern hemisphere? Correct. Okay, we cannot. Good. So for Y, I would say B is in the southern hemisphere. So we cannot see it. Okay, the North Star is only visible from the northern hemisphere. Okay, so if you look in your notes, you have the answers for questions 6 and 8. I'm going to write them in here so you have them, and then I'm going to take my time and I'm going to go over question 7. So the first one, 43, 2 minutes north, 76, 5 minutes west. Remember, plus or minus 5 minutes. That's what it will be on the quiz too. And then 44 degrees, 40 minutes north, 73 degrees, 29 minutes west. Okay, so those 2 are in your notes. So technically you already have the answers for them. I'm going to use the reference table right now and go over this one. This one we didn't do in class. So if you don't have your reference table out, take it out. So you can look along with me. This will be a little review of probably one of the more difficult skills that you're going to be doing in just a couple minutes on your own. Okay? So coming to the reference table, and the first thing we're going to do is find Jamestown. So Jamestown is this little dot just at the edge of a lake here in western New York State. The first thing that I do when I want to get a latitude and longitude to the nearest minute is I decide which 2 numbers it's between. So remember, if you have a latitude, it should be a 40-something number. So I'm going to look at my Jamestown. I see it's between 42 and 43 degrees. Okay, so which number do I go with? If I'm between 42 and 43, which number do I go with? Only 3 hands on this one. 4 hands, good, 5. Waiting for a little bit more. Even if you don't want to share your answer with me right now, have one in your head, because I could ask you the same exact question in about 10 minutes. Which one do I go with if I'm between 42 and 43? Michael? 42. Why do I go with 42? Because it's less. It's a smaller number. Good, exactly. The reason I'm not going with 42 is because it's closer. You know what I mean? If Jamestown was here, we wouldn't go with 43 still. It would still be 42. So we go with 42 because it's the smaller number, not because it's closer. A lot of students get confused by that. So 42 is our first number. Everybody should have that for our first latitude coordinate. Okay, so now we need to get our minutes, and then our compass direction, and then we'll get the rest of our coordinates. Okay, so we got 42 so far. So this number is actually 42 degrees 00 minutes. And this number is actually 43 degrees 00 minutes. If we find our halfway point, that will help us estimate just about where halfway is. So this little plus sign is your 42 degrees 30 minutes. Okay, so this is our halfway point. And remember, this whole thing is 1 hour from top to bottom, from 42 to 43. So from there, you can estimate a little bit further. Okay, this would be about 42 degrees 15 minutes. And this would be about, just kind of eyeballing it here, 42 degrees 45 minutes. And so now we have kind of a basic idea of the distances apart for each one. Okay, so for the minutes for Jamestown, if you have 10, that's probably ideal, but remember that's plus or minus 5 minutes. Okay, so as much as 15 and as less as 5. So I give you a nice range of acceptable answers there. Okay, and what are my latitude coordinates are always in what? North, south, east, or west? West? Not for latitude. That's for longitude. Since we are in New York, we are in northern hemisphere. Good, exactly. So that's your latitude coordinate. And remember, for this, plus or minus 5 minutes. Okay? Now my longitude. I'll switch colors so you can see the difference. Okay? Longitudes. Oop, hold on. It's being a little sassy. Doesn't want to change color. There we go. Longitude should be in your 70s. Okay? So your longitudes are the 70 numbers. So for Jamestown, I see 79 here. And then what would be over here, even though it's not written? It gets kind of cut off. What number should be to the left over here? Giancarlo?
80.
Yeah, 80 would be like probably right here. So since we're between 79 and 80, what number do we go with as our first number? 79. Yep, 79, again, because it's the smaller number. Okay? So here's our halfway point. So this is 79 degrees 30 minutes. Okay, and that goes up to about this line. So this is still our halfway point right about here. So I would say 15 minutes would be about right here, which is very close to our Jamestown. So I would say maybe like, if you wanted to be so specific, 14 minutes. But again, plus or minus 5. Does anyone have any questions about?
Will they always have that halfway mark?
Yeah, the halfway mark's always on there.
It'll always be on there. Any Regents questions or
Yep,
anything?
exactly. You'll have the halfway mark. It really does help you estimate your distances.
Right.
Make sure you use your ruler though. So if you're doing your halfway mark here, you should make sure you're lining it up with the one toward the top of the page. They'll always have the other half of the line, okay, for you to find. And that will make sure that your ruler is straight as it should be. Okay, questions on this at all? Okay, let's answer 9 and 10, and then you can take your quiz. So question 9 says, from which of the following cities will Polaris be highest in the sky? We have Messina, New York, and we also have Binghamton, New York, which is here. So which one of these cities would Polaris appear highest in the sky? 2 hands, good. 3 hands. What do we think? Yes, Sarah. Messina, how do you know? Yep. Messina is furthest north. Another way to say that is to say its latitude is the largest. Messina is about 45 degrees north, which means the altitude of Polaris is 45 degrees north. Binghamton is at about 42 degrees north, which is just a little less. So Polaris would appear just a bit lower in the sky in Binghamton because it's further south. Okay? Good. Number 10. From which of the following cities would Polaris be lowest in the sky? So I switched the question up a little bit. So Watertown is here, and Albany is here. So same question but opposite. Which one of these locations would Polaris be lowest in the sky? And then maybe you can tell me why. Ava.
Albany, because it's